So before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly,
Stephen A. Smith just dropped a reality bomb that has the entire WNBA running for cover and completely upends everything we believe to be true about women basketball's future, so you might want to take a seat. The tension was high, as we all knew. The locker rooms were divided, as we knew. However, nobody anticipated that the Players Association, believing they had all the power against the league owners, would literally blow up their own contract this early. The worst part, though, is that everyone is talking about it in whispers but hasn't said it aloud yet. Stephen A. isn't merely criticizing the league for their timing or greed. In a sense, he's verifying that Caitlin Clark has already initiated contact. It's not a public letter shared on social media or a press conference. Without a doubt, though, Clark has effectively quit the drama, and everyone who believed they could intimidate the Golden Goose and still get paid will suffer dire consequences. Since this is the domino that initiated the entire chain reaction, let's get right to the crash out. The WNBA Players Association formally made the decision to leave their collective bargaining agreement 2 years ahead of schedule. To put it simply, they destroyed their contract. They observed the crowded arenas, the private jets that were finally being chartered, and the unprecedented TV ratings that broke records each and every night, and they concluded it was time to call for a significant pay increase. They want a piece of the pie, and they want it immediately. That makes sense on paper given that the league is expanding at an exponential rate. However, Stephen A. Smith identifies their master plan's one obvious, fatal flaw. From a company that has only been profitable for roughly 5 minutes, they are asking for a fortune. Additionally, they are actively undermining the one and only reason money exists at all. Regardless of how they handle the star attraction, they are placing a big bet that the audience will stick around. And the league as a whole could go bankrupt as a result of that risk. Caitlin Clark made a move that was more powerful than any picket sign or irate tweet could ever hope to be while the union was busy yelling about demands and equity. She turned down the unparalleled league. For those who are unaware, Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Keir founded the new, ostentatious 3-on-3 league called Unrivaled. These are the same veterans who have been competing against Clark and, in some cases, continuing to ignore her throughout the entire year. They reportedly offered her more than $1 million for a few weeks of work, league equity, and the red carpet treatment. Since WNBA players have historically had to play year-round in order to pay their mortgages, they assumed she would jump at the chance, but Clark declined. According to Stephen A., this is her tacit surrender. She abandoned their ecosystem, their league, and their finances. Instead of giving them the power of her name, she decided to play golf, relax, and move away from the commotion. "I don't need you, but you definitely needed me," is the message conveyed by this quiet power move. At this point, Stephen A. Smith truly lost control in the best way imaginable, analyzing the circumstances with a brutal honesty that the WNBA establishment detests. He refers to it as the ultimate fumble of the bag. In a vacuum, the unions and the veterans' demands for equity and revenue sharing are entirely reasonable. However, you cannot demand a portion of Caitlin Clark's earnings while allowing players to ignore her influence in the media and harass her on the court. Throughout the season, we've witnessed the side eyes, the hard fouls, the exclusion from Olympic rosters, and the persistent media shading. According to SAS, their jealousy is preventing them from seeing the business reality. While attempting to cook the goose for dinner, they're attempting to squeeze it for golden eggs. It's not possible to have both. Additionally, by choosing not to participate in the CBA at this time, they're betting that Clark will simply remain and endure the heat indefinitely, supporting their salaries while treating her like an outsider. Even though the emotions in the locker room may lie, let's examine the numbers, because they don't. This CBA rise is necessary for the typical WNBA player to live comfortably and survive without traveling abroad to play in hazardous or taxing environments. It's not Caitlin Clark. Her WNBA salary is essentially pocket change due to her enormous Nike contract, which is reportedly worth close to $30 million, as well as significant endorsements from Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson, and other companies. It makes up less than 1% of her yearly salary. Stephen A. Smith fiercely emphasized this point. The only player in the league who can leave tomorrow and be wealthy for the rest of her life is Clark. The union is making demands and acting as though they have control over the entire ecosystem, but the rookie they've been harassing is the only one with real power. Players are not compensated if the league locks out. However, Clark will continue to cash Nike checks while honing her putting technique. This rant exposes more than just the players. The leaders of the league are also being called into question. Stephen A. reiterated remarks that the current leadership's handling of this transition is the worst in the world. What? Because they permitted a hostile workplace to develop around their most valuable employee. Every other company in the world safeguards its rainmaker. If a salesperson accounts for 80% of your revenue, you must ensure their satisfaction, safety, and support. Rather, when the conversation became poisonous, the WNBA leadership did nothing but watch and let the stories of jealousy run amok. Their biggest star is separating herself from the other members of the league's inner circle as they engage in a labor war with the union. It's a management disaster, and the executives will have to explain to the NBA Board of Governors why they lost a billion-dollar opportunity because they were too scared to tell the veterans to calm down if the league closes due to a lockout or strike. A warning shot across the bow of the entire sport. Stephen A. Smith's last take was ominous. He cautioned that we are approaching a tipping point where silence turns into a departure. Clark won't be the one suffering or pleading for a settlement if the union strikes and the games are suspended. She plans to work in broadcasting. She will only participate in international exhibition games for millions of dollars. Or she will simply develop her brand on her own. If the toxicity continues, the resignation from the WNBA may become official. Thinking they were operating a tank, the players opted out in a game of chicken with the league owners, but they were unaware that the league was being propelled forward by the car. Caitlin Clark simply put her finger on her eject button by declining unrivaled. We must examine the history of disrespect that brought us to this point in order to fully comprehend the scope of this crash out. It took time for this to happen. Before Clark had played a single professional minute, it began. Do you recall the remarks made by icons like Cheryl Swoops and Diana Taurasi? The cautions that she wouldn't rule and that reality would soon arrive. It created the mood. Every veteran felt obligated to humble the rookie because of the atmosphere it created. They tried, too. She was blitzed. They mistreated her. They shielded her from 94 feet. She broke the rookie scoring and assist records and led a lottery team to the postseason in spite of all of that. Stephen A. notes that rather than commemorating this, the union and the veterans intensified their efforts to construct this narrative. You don't overlook the person who ultimately turned the lights on for the world to see, even though it's true that the league stood on the shoulders of giants. The union is now attempting to profit from Clark's attention by opting out of the CBA, but they won't acknowledge that Clark was the one who brought it. Both fans and business experts find this degree of cognitive dissonance perplexing. Additionally, there is the unparalleled element that cannot be emphasized. This league was meant to serve as the link. Stewart and Collier started it to provide WNBA players with an opportunity to remain in the United States during the off-season and earn real money. The secret to their television deal was getting Clark. There were rumors that big networks were holding off on making a huge broadcast package until they saw if Clark signed. Clark didn't merely conserve energy by declining. She probably cost her competitors millions of dollars in lost revenue. Their wallets are the target of this passive-aggressive attack, which hurts them the most. This was not an accident, according to Stephen A. Clark is astute. She is aware of her worth and understands that by refusing to participate, she demonstrates how important she is. If Unrivaled finds it difficult to attract viewers without her, it confirms what SAS has been saying. Not just for women's basketball in general, but for Caitlin specifically. Let's examine the psychology of the crash out in more detail.
Now why?
Why leave 2 years early? According to the union, they wish to negotiate a new model that takes into account the league's transformation. They want better travel standards, better pension benefits, and higher salaries. All of these objectives are admirable, but the timing implies that they think the leverage will never be greater than it is now. They fear that if they wait, the excitement may fade or the TV numbers may reach a plateau. However, as Stephen A. points out, The irony is that they run the risk of completely stopping the momentum by inciting instability and threatening a work stoppage. It's possible that viewers who just tuned in to watch Clark won't stay. The casual fans will switch back to the NBA or NFL and may not return if the league enters a lockout or if the 2026 season is postponed or canceled due to avaricious negotiations. The union is experimenting with fire inside a paper house. The racial dynamics and the media coverage that has stoked this fire were also discussed by Stephen A. Smith. He's been outspoken about how the media has portrayed Clark in contrast to celebrities like Wilson. While acknowledging that race has an impact on marketing, he stresses that business is business. You advertise what sells. To keep the NBA afloat, they promoted Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Whether it was fair to the other players was not a concern for them. Keeping the lights on was a concern. Claims that although the WNBA is in its Magic and Bird phase, the players are behaving as though they belong to a socialist collective where everyone should be treated equally, regardless of who is selling tickets. The wedge is being driven by this participation trophy mentality with regard to media attention. On the road, Clark sells out arenas. The Las Vegas Aces, the two-time champions, had lower attendance than the Fever. That is a fact of statistics. The union alienates the business partners who are funding their raises when they disregard this fact in their pursuit of equal outcomes. We must also discuss the resignation from the standpoint of mental health. By the end of the season, we saw Caitlin Clark appear worn out, both emotionally and physically. It wears her out to be constantly watched, have her teammates read her lips, and have her body language analyzed. She may be using her retreat as a preservation strategy, according to Stephen A. She anticipates the crash. She witnesses the union preparing for a labor dispute by honing their weapons. And she is making the decision to leave the blast area. She is detoxing from the toxicity of the WNBA circle by remaining in Iowa, playing golf, and spending time with her family and boyfriend. This poses a threat to the league because she might decide to permanently leave if she finds that she is happier without the WNBA than with it. We've witnessed athletes leave. Please remember to like, subscribe, and enable all notifications if you have watched this far and found the video entertaining.